Hi, this is Mehdi,
Hello, this is Fran.
and this is Total Tactics Football. Welcome back, Fran. How are you feeling about last night's game and the result, and what does that mean for you guys?
Fantastic. It was just great to see, the body of work of Zidane and all the players who've been key this season, players who've played smaller roles, all pay off in what was a fantastic run for the end of the season. And
Well, I
yeah,
think
I'm just really, really chuffed, really.
well deserved, well deserved. I mean, it's been a tight race for most of the season,
Yeah.
but Real Madrid made through, and well deserved again. So first, we'll talk about the game. How do you
Mhm.
feel Villareal's setup worked, and against your Real Madrid's game plan?
So, funnily enough, I did actually think that the Villarreal game would be very easy. And a couple of people disagreed on this with me because they think that Villareal has had great form lately. Made a close run to trying to edge maybe for a European spot that Sevilla was contesting as well. Um, but in reality, when you watch Villarreal play, they're a bit of a toothless team in the sense that they don't try their hardest to press, so they don't put you under pressure that much. They like to play an open style of football, and yes, they can score goals, but you can score goals against them too. And I think the most indicative game of that is the fact that this very poor Barcelona side managed to score four versus them in a game where Barcelona could have scored eight and Villarreal could have scored four. When I kind of translate that to Real Madrid, where I was playing at home, yes, they're a tough side. They have top players. Jared Moreno has had a fantastic season. Santi Cazorla has still been
Yeah.
ever present. They've had players coming back from injury. But when it comes down to it, I think we have just as much firepower and more in terms of the midfield. And frankly, we have a defense that is elite and the best in Spain. So I didn't think that game was going to be in doubt. But, we managed to pull through thanks to the work of the players.
I guess that's what it is. Is the whole season we've been talking about your defensive stability, this steel at the back, and that's what it showed. And in the moments where you might not have been able to create too many chances, but you do see off the games. And as last night, you needed to see it off, and you won the title.
Absolutely. I mean, Barcelona made it all the more easier by losing to Osasuna. I was keeping tracks on that game, and I mean, it
Were
was
you happy
just
about that result?
that was probably another win that I was celebrating yesterday. But when it comes down to it, it's just post lockdown break. This side has been fantastic. I think a lot of players have come back rejuvenated, maybe with the exception of Valverde, who I think has had a slight dip in form, but no issues there because players like Modric and Kroos really stepped up, and I think their physical fitness has been better than ever as well. And I think you can see that in players like Benzema starting game to game, Courtois starting game to game, and Casemiro starting game to game as well.
So, I mean, well, you talk about Modric and Kroos now starting to, get back to the form of old.
Yeah.
So I'd like you to tell me more about this spine that Real Madrid has had for a while, but still looks ever present and as strong, and it doesn't look like it's going to be slowing down anytime soon.
Right. So the beauty of the season was, I think, early on, Federico Valverde was more actively used by Zidane, not just purely as a rotation option, but really someone who was starting games and showing that he was able to, lead with his kind of exemplary performance on and off the pitch in a sense, and just his presence, on the defensive half and the offensive half, as a box-to-box player and someone who
Yeah.
provides a lot of like youthful dynamism to the side alongside, Casemiro, who's always there. And the key thing for me, coming back from the break was we stopped using Modric as more of a kind of late game player who would be able to break down defenses with his creative passing, with
Yeah.
through ball
Carrying.
assists.
Yeah.
But now he's in a sense transformed himself back to a player who's able to run on both ends of the pitch. He now signals players to move. He moves all the way back into defense to start plays from deep. He's trying to link up play. He's moving down the right, interplaying with Carvajal as well. I'm not sure what's really happened because it did seem like maybe that sort of World Cup run, as many people talked about, really
Mm.
took a toll on his physical body. And this break has been fantastic for him. I think he's really back to his best. And Toni Kroos, along with it, when the team is playing good football, it's usually predicated by Kroos because he's able to control the tempo of the game. But I would give credit to Modric being our best midfielder, coming back from the lockdown break, because he's really been controlling everything, and he's asking for the ball, demanding for it, and doing a lot with it too.
I agree with you, and I think in hindsight, this is unfortunately due to the COVID and the Euros being cancelled. I feel like these players will actually be allowed some time to rest. Like you mentioned, these international tournaments can be enduring, and they don't get enough break in the summer. This time they'll be able to. The lockdown gave them some time to rest their bodies to sort of get back. And for older players who don't generally get time to recover, they need a bit more space. It's worked out really well. It's been a blessing in disguise.
Exactly, and I mean, obviously underpinned by our midfield excellence is obviously our defensive excellence too, and that comes down to Courtois. He's had a fantastic season, another fantastic double save yesterday. He has been a key figure for this side. We have always looked very, very prone to a mistake in goal. Even when we played with Navas, who would always execute amazing saves, but he would always make the slight occasional mistake. Now with Courtois this season coming back from his slightly poor start, I think he's been ever present and one of the most dominant keepers I've seen from Madrid, just in terms of shutting out games, since Casillas was in his prime, really.
No, that's true. I mean, you don't hear enough about Courtois actually making a mistake. A known fact was that people would try to go through his legs due to his big frame, but I feel like he's improved with his positional play, and he's worked on his weaknesses. And as we discussed a few days ago, that's the difference between great players and the best players. They always are improving themselves.
And that's the thing too. Great players have the sort of mentality to, deal with criticism as well. Obviously constructive, and work on it and improve on it. And they're able to get themselves out of patchy runs of form, and they're able to really rise above poor periods and try to mold themselves into the best player that they can. And I think Courtois has done that. And in the same vein, so has Benzema. Benzema has been absolutely pivotal. We spoke about the defense, and that's obviously underpinned by the work of Ramos and Varane and Carvajal, and also the split work by Marcelo and Mendy. Mendy, who obviously had to take over from Marcelo being injured, and he's done fantastic. We saw that with the goal last week. But what it comes down to it too is, a lot of our goals have come from Benzema this season. I mean, this season has been has been also framed in the sense by the sort of depth that Real Madrid has with the amount of collective goal scorers in the team and how the goals are distributed. But Benzema is the sort of ever-present striker that we have needed. He brings the team in, but he also contributes plenty in terms of goal scoring. He hasn't scored penalties this season. He's very close to Messi still in the Pichichi race. Scored 2 yesterday, and has just been a key figure for the side.
Talking about like your attacking firepower and options available, it's been wonderful for the main core of team have worked out, but last summer's signings seem to have not reached the level everyone would have hoped. Hazard with injuries, Jovic still struggling to sort of settle in. What do you make of them, and what do you think is the future for those players?
So I mean, let's start with Jovic first, because he hasn't had much game time, and he hasn't been talked about much lately. He was seen as a little bit of a villain. Even the nation of Serbia, there's an interesting story, covered by Tifo on it. I would recommend people watch that. But, Jovic hasn't played much, but he's still a young player. I'm not exactly sure if he's in Zidane's plans. Zidane is not the type of manager who really throws his players under the bus. He mentions that Jovic is in his plans going forwards, but I'm not entirely sure if that's the case. It's really up to Zidane. I have full faith in him. But when it comes down to it, Jovic had some time to contribute this season, and he's just not able to provide as much even when he's not scoring a goal. So for example, when Benzema doesn't score, he's at least able to assist and provide in other areas of the pitch and contribute from deep, whereas Jovic is more of a lethal striker. He's played his best in two striker systems as well, so I wonder if that was a bit of a difficulty for him. But he's also a young player. You have to think about Benzema and Higuain coming in at a time when Raul was still, a starter for Real Madrid. They had to rotate. They had to, take times to sit in the sidelines. And I would still hold down that yet. It depends on whether the Real Madrid hierarchy want to do something with him. But moving on to Hazard, he has been the big marquee season coming in from last summer. And I think he's gelled very well with the team. You know, a lot of the team he's very close to. You can see he's had a great relationship with Benzema off the field. And
Yeah.
I think he's an absolute asset to the side in that sense. And he hasn't unfortunately played as much as he would like because of the injury issues and also some of the pain that he's been dealing with. I watched him yesterday and I thought he was a bit timid early on, trying to go pass first. I think what happens when you have, let's say, an injury that's plagued you and it stopped you from playing the football that you love or the way that you like to play, is that it makes you second guess your decisions very early on. So let's say I want to be the type of player who always takes persons on people on like Hazard. He's now morphed into a bit of a pass first player because I think he's a little bit scared and reticent of getting tackled and getting hurt. And I think that's affected him. But later on in the game, after he made, for example, three, I'd say, poor touches early on, he tried to make dribbles, he tried to run down the byline, and it worked out, you know. And he still picks up a tremendous amount of fouls, regardless of whether he's looking for a pass first or a dribble. So he is a key player in that sense because he's really able to peg defenders and make them worry. I think he just needs a little bit of time off, a little bit of a mental reset now that there's sort of no pressure on him. The team has done
Yeah.
exceptional without him, and I would like to see him going forwards because he still looks, you know, in good physical shape. But I don't see that sort of same kind of
Tenacity.
confidence as well in being
Yeah.
able to take on players first time and, you know, go through those tackles, unfortunately, which hurt and make the difference.
I agree with you, and I feel like this is also good that there's no European tournament this summer, so he doesn't have the pressure of having to come back earlier from injury,
Right.
and hopefully for next season he'll be able to settle in quicker and show us the Hazard we know he is.
Absolutely. So, I mean, underpinned by that is, you know, we mentioned the two new transfers not working out very well. It's the work of Zinedine Zidane, really. It was a shock when he was returning to the side, but this year I think what he's encapsulated is by being able to win the league without Ronaldo and win without, you know, Hazard and Jovic having major contributions. Is he's shown that with the same group of players that have in a sense failed under Lopetegui and other managers,
Yeah.
he can do it, and he's been able to instill so much tactical flexibility in the side, small little improvements in terms of getting the most out of Courtois and Fede Valverde, and also bringing in players like Rodrygo and Vinicius and Asensio, who are all able to contribute, you know, in their own little way in the post-COVID break.
I am very glad that finally this conversation, this debate that Zidane is not a good manager is going to go away, should go away. He has shown that even with the lack of firepower that a major club of Real Madrid normally possesses, Gareth Bale's not, like you said, you know, it's not being performing with injuries or in general with decline in form, Hazard not being his best. He has managed to show that he is a incredible manager. And this title, you know, shows it, and he still has the Champions League to fight for. It's not like they're out of it right at this moment. Anything could happen in the reverse picture against Man City. So this is incredible. Fiorentino Perez knew that Zidane was the guy for this crop of players and for the future too, and he's repaid his faith back.
Yeah, I mean, Florentino also mentioned that, you know, Ramos would stay forever. I mean, whether or not that happens, it's
That's
great to
yeah,
hear because Ramos is in excellent physical condition. And you know what encapsulates both Ramos and Zidane the most for me is that they understand the occasion at Real Madrid. It's a club that knows it's about winning trophies, and they understand the importance of playing at that sort of excellent level, and, you know, competing for trophies in that sense with that sort of desire. And it's been encapsulated by the fact that Real Madrid have won every game from the break. So that Man City game is next. These group of players are tremendously hungry, and they all have a lot of experience behind them. And
exactly.
I think it'll be an interesting tie, but ultimately, you know, whatever happens, I think Zidane is manager long term for Real Madrid. I don't know whether he wants to stay long term, but, you know, he is pretty much in this modern context the perfect manager for Real Madrid.
I think so, and I think for the big personalities that normally are linked with Real Madrid, he is the perfect man to keep everyone in check and to get the best out of them.